need me to adhere to the dress code right now? Enjoy the fallout.
I was reminded of this story from my work by one of my coworkers. It's been maybe 5 to 7 years since this happened. Where I work there is a semi-strict dress code that needs to be adhered to so we look presentable when going to customers' houses. The minor details are more or less negotiable depending on who's our manager that day. We have a normal manager we see almost daily, but if he's off or it's a weekend someone else subs in. The day this happened was a Saturday and our regular manager was off, so the duty manager for the day happened to be Mr. Hardass, whom no one liked, and he made it his life goal to make all the techs miserable. When we walked in the door we had to pass through the manager's office to get to our meeting area. My co-worker Tim, name changed, walked in the door that was to the manager's office with everything looking right on his uniform but his shirt untucked. The following conversation took place. Mr. Hardass, your shirt should be tucked in. Tim, absolutely, and I will do that when I set my gear down and go to the bathroom. Mr. Hardass, no, you need to show up for work ready to work. Not show up and get ready on my time. Tim, okay, let me set my stuff down and I'll go right to the bathroom and tuck it in for you.
Mr. Hardass, no. You're going to tuck it in right now before you walk another step into my building. Tim, right now? Mr. Hardass, right now. So, my coworker did as instructed, unbuttoned his pants and pulled them all the way down to his ankles and proceeded to smooth out his shirt and then reach all the way down and pull his pants all the way back up and rebutton them.
From there he immediately walked outside and called the HR hotline and told them his manager on duty just forced him to undo his pants and semi-strip in front of him in his personal office and wouldn't allow him to go to the bathroom to tuck his shirt in. That he felt weird and uncomfortable to be around Mr. Hardass and didn't know if he had any ulterior motives. None of us are privy to what exactly happened from that phone call on, but we do know that he got laterally moved from being a tech manager to the safety team where he was no longer in charge of any subordinates.
I'll make an edit to iron out some details or important things I forgot. Our job is very much union-based and as such the union book is the law of the land, so language and actions have to be very specific as not to draw ire from the union or the business. Tim was raised in a union household by someone who was very involved in their union, so he has a very keen knowledge on how to manipulate things well within the trappings of the union handbook. He did this whole thing not next to the boss's desk but within line of sight of the door coming in and the door to the meeting room, so there were visual witnesses from the meeting room and people who trickled into work behind him who literally walked through the entire ordeal. So, there were plenty of witnesses to corroborate. I had a manager do something like that, except it was because I had a little stubble on my face. My facial hair grows really fast, and he demanded that I take a disposable razor to the bathroom and shave before leaving the office. I didn't look like a hobo. I just have dark facial hair that never really looks clean-shaven. I clarified that he wanted me to go in the bathroom that had no hot water at all, with no shaving cream, and shave with a disposable razor. He confirmed that this was what he wanted, and I told him that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to slice my face up because he was having a bad day. He backed down. He was normally pretty chill, so I chalked it up to him being on the warpath for something unrelated to my face.
What was MH's reaction while the guy maliciously complied?
I once had a boss that thought my pants weren't up high enough, but I was too busy to step away to fix them. So he came over and undid my belt, moved my pants higher on my waist, tucked my shirt into my pants, putting his hand into my pants, then rebuckled my belt. I am female and was 16 at the time.
That's awesome. For real, he should have let Tim go to the fucking bathroom.
I love this guy for using the reporting hotline immediately after the fact. Wish I could have heard the dick manager's excuse to keep his job. Pathetic begging him, sure.
So in school we had to wear a uniform. Part of that uniform was to keep the shirt tucked in. I lost a lot of weight and went from a UK size 14/16 to a 10. But my mum refused to buy me new trousers and there were no belt loops. My PE skirt literally slipped off if I didn't wedge the band into my shorts. One day a teacher was on the warpath and forced me to tuck my shirt in properly. I would tuck it in, but leave a good chunk of material hanging out so people couldn't see down my pants. It looked messy but it was still tucked. Well, he made me do it properly. When I was done you could see down the front of my pants easily. I was 13. He very quickly looked away, told me to untuck my shirt and to buy new pants. I told him to go tell my mom that because she was refusing. I kept those trousers through most of school. I was a very skinny kid. Like my abs were showing skinny. Wearing massively oversized clothes. I looked ridiculous and was called fat a lot. Nope, not fat, just have big clothes. Teachers did stop asking me to tuck my shirt in properly though. Showing it was tucked in but hiding the massive amount of material around my middle seemed to do the trick. Geez. Send him to the bathroom and write him up if you're that anal about employees being ready for work when they arrive. The only thing better would be as if T was one to go commando. Thing definitely would have fallen out then. My ex-husband did this once when we were teenagers, except there was no HR department to call. And we were leaving work and apparently weren't allowed to walk to the parking lot with shirts untucked. He said he'd do it when he got outside. Manager said, "No, do it now," so he dropped to with a smug grin and smoothed his shirt out and tucked. Manager let out a feeble, "You better watch it, buddy," then never harassed him over uniform again. I got sent home to change on my third day of work at a car wash once because I wore blue slacks instead of tan ones. It was sunny and took me 3 hours round trip to bus home and back. When I got back, the manager who sent me home was pissed off, but I was never told I could only wear tan slacks until I showed up in not tan. Had a manager who told me a story about working in a union. So they are getting ready to leave Friday evening and their manager comes storming in complaining that so-and-so room didn't get painted. They tried to argue it was Friday evening, but the manager said they were not to leave before the entire room was painted. They started as soon as the manager left the room. They started by painting the windows. Dress code. They decided we weren't allowed to wear blue jeans. So I bought a bunch different colored Wranglers in gray, sage and white. They weren't blue.
Sometimes there are consequences to being a dick.
Way to go. That guy was just trying to be a jerk to make a point. And the point was, I can humiliate you. And he got his own medicine and more.
Spectacular. Power move from Tim there.
Tim is the untucker mo ever. He took one for the team. I was once written up for a breach of the dress code for coming out of the bathroom with my skirt tucked unintentionally into my panties. This was like 6th grade. So the instructor often made me feel like I had deliberately worn my skirt that way. On top of the humiliation of getting my panties out, instead of nicely asking me about it. I really want to know what HR thinks of this. Was it on camera for them? Oh man, I'd sue if it was. Fuck 'em. Gotta be one of the best posts I've seen here in a while. Reminds me of the time I was working in a military organization. I was walking with a coworker who happened to be a Navy senior chief. For those of you that aren't aware, generally speaking you don't mess with any of the chiefs unless they really earned it. This particular senior chief grew up in the Navy in the 80s and 90s, and now that it was the he was in the twilight of his career. It meant that generally speaking he didn't have a politically correct bone in his body. Some of that being from when he served the majority of his career. PCness wasn't a thing. especially at sea, which is where he spent most of his time, and where he was in his career. The organization I worked in was top-heavy, officers everywhere. We also happened to have a ton of reservists that were called on active orders for that whole global war on terror thing. Some reservists were better than others because they spent time learning their jobs, or had credibility of being active sometime prior. Others were clueless and had the readiness that you'd expect from someone that does a job one weekend a month plus a few weeks out of the year. Enter clueless Navy commander. Coworker and I were walking across the operations floor talking about work when the clueless commander stops the senior chief to talk. He tells the senior chief that he is out of regulation because the epaulets were not centered correctly on his black jacket that goes with his service khakis. Senior chief has to entertain the conversation even though the commander isn't in his chain of command, because respect for rank and all that. Senior chief then asks the commander if he minded some feedback. He laid it out in decreasing levels of collegiality. 1. Next time pull him aside and don't dress him down in front of everyone. He's a senior chief and has earned that. 2. The next time the commander decides to harass him about his uniform, he better be sure to not be out of uniform himself. You see, the commander was wearing the same jacket, but it was only zippered up 1/4 of the way up when regs call for 3/4 of the way up. 3. The senior chief is not some kid to be picked on and deserves more respect than to be called out on some BS uniform infraction by a reservist who never spent a day at sea. And that is when I walked away. When I saw the senior chief next, he said that commander won't mess with him again. But he was told to cool his heels next time by the LCDR he reported to.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.